I'd like to thank everyone who's on our virtual town hall tonight, the panelists, the moderator. Thank you everyone for taking out part of their Sunday evening just to come on just to have a discussion with the topic that we have before us. But before I do anything else, let me first introduce our moderator, Mr. Phil Williams. I met Mr. Williams back in 2016 when doing a political campaign that I was going on, and he's the radio talk show host of a radio station right here in Clayton County. And Mr. Phil Williams, he's a good guy. He's a jam-up guy. I've been knowing him for quite a few years now, and he also has a program that calls Little Jimmy that really impacts children around the city here. And so, no further ado, I'd just like to go ahead and Mr. Phil Williams, take it from there.
Hello, everybody, man. A lot of familiar faces, man. We have crossed paths before creatively and ministerially. How you doing, Mr. Joshua? Everybody. And it's such an honor to be asked to be the moderator of something of this magnitude at this time in our community. And as you know, I'm a radio talk show host. I'm a youth advocate before, in the middle, the beginning, the top to bottom. I love God's people. I love God's children. I'm a minister, and I'm also a friend of Clayton County. I'm a business operator here in Clayton County, partnered with Hearts to Nourish Hope, and just to do a lot, but more so, thank you, Mr. Fabian, for asking me to have this honor. And I pray that I do everybody justice, and I pray that our questions be informative and our answers be enlightening. Well, let's get this going. You ready to get going? Okay, here we go.
Let's get going. Let's get going.
All right, let's introduce our panelists. Our panelists, Pastor Joseph Wheeler, very, very creative gentleman, man. Yes, Mount Olive Baptist Church, and he's representing the faith-based community today. How you doing, Pastor Wheeler?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. We have Robert Halls. He's a law enforcement veteran law enforcement officer. If he can chime in. How you doing today, sir? If he's not, we'll keep it moving. We have Frederick Walker, awesome business person. He's representing the business community today. How you doing, Mr. Walker?
Great. How are you doing today?
Awesome. If you can probably turn your microphone up just a little bit, because you're coming in kind of low, but we'll work all those things out. Okay. And then we have a retired sergeant from Los Angeles Police Department. Her name is Carlotta Cole. How you doing, Ms. Cole? You have to take your microphone off mute so we can hear you.
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Oh, man, that's awesome. You're coming through loud and proud and bright and vibrant. It's exactly the way we like it. Thank you. And just to remind you guys are controlling this mute thing. So you guys got to unmute yourself to talk. We're not controlling this. You are. You're in control. As much as we like to have the control of muting people, we can't do that. That's what you have to do, muting, unmuting. And so, thank you so much. And then Pastor Alvin McDonald, he is a community leader. Are you in here today, Pastor? If not, we'll keep it moving. He'll probably chime in here later as soon as he connects. I believe he might have been having some connection issues earlier. But outside of that, since Mr. Fabian is the one who is bringing on this town hall, and this is going to be an ongoing thing all the way through the elections. And matter of fact, I'm going to plant the seed now that once he's elected, if that be the Lord's will, that you continue these town halls even as a sitting sheriff. I think it'll be very informative. And so saying that, I'd like to give you, Mr. Fabian, another 2 minutes to share the importance of this and what you'd like to accomplish.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Phil. If we look around in today's society, we're having a lot of issues with our youth. Those that are homeless, those that are being abused, and those that just having this violence all about themselves, those that have been initiated in the gangs. I mean, we see it all across the internet these days, especially when we have these so-called parenting, how they beat their children while someone else is videotaping it. It's uncalled for these days. And so when you beat a child in the fashion in which you're doing and putting it out there on the internet for the entire world to see, what impact that it's going to have on that child when that child becomes of age. Is it going to be a trend? Is it going to be when they start having their children, it's a trickle down effect that they abuse their children in the same fashion of the way that they were abused? Those parents, are we just having children to have children and let them grow up and teach themselves on how to become young, prosperous adults? Or are we letting them go out and make their own decisions by joining gangs, getting themselves in all types of trouble where they may be able to become homeless, and not only homeless, become violent to you, to me, to anybody. You know, it was once upon a time that people would come to your house to knock on the door and ring the doorbell to see if you are home. If they heard an inkling of a noise within inside your residence, they will leave. But now they want you to be home now. So they want the goods from the residents and you too. And so I think we have to have a discussion on this. What can we do as a community? What can we do as a state to bring our point across to everyone to get our children back where they need to be?
I totally 100% agree. And, you know, Mr. Pastor Wheeler, you are the first person I'm going to ask a question, and following that up, as we know, and you representing the faith-based community, as we know, the Bible does tell us if we spare the rod, we spoil the child. So knowing that, what do you see as a potential way of approaching this and articulating when does that discipline that God calls for crosses the line of abuse? If you can, Pastor Wheeler.
Well, and then I guess it begs an examination of one's own self as a parent. It begs an examination of where we are. We must be aware of our stress levels and what we are dealing with in our daily lives. For example, during this pandemic, when everyone is quarantined, families are having to be together more than they normally would be. And tempers can boil over, and parents can overreact or act out of their own pain or their own hurt. And we have to be aware of this. You know, I mean, mental health is real, and we have to be aware of where we are psychologically, you know, spiritually, you know, where we are before we begin to discipline. And I think, you know, we have to balance our discipline with love. Okay, you look at your children the way you see yourself. You know, you were a child at one time, and you know you went through some of the same things, and so we might tend to act like we didn't go through these things, but we did. We went through some of the same challenges that our children are going through. So you approach your discipline from that perspective, and be ready to listen, and be ready to look for those signs, some of the same signs that you had when you were, you know, a child. Oh, no.
And if I can, Pastor Wheeler, and because the nature of this town hall, can I ask you from a faith-based perspective, how do you see the role that law enforcement plays? Looks like we might have lost Pastor Wheeler, but we'll get him back. Let's go to our business owner, our business community representative on our panel today, Mr. Walker. Mr. Walker, same question to you. From a business community standpoint, we're looking at discipline and more so the homelessness and the possible opportunity or responsibility that the business community brings to bear in these things. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think the business community can.
We're gonna need you to turn your mic up just a little bit, buddy.
I think I have mine up high as it can go. How about, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I hear you fine.
You can hear me good? Okay. What I was saying, I think that the business community can do a whole lot more. You know, if we can come together, but due to the situation we in right now, it's another challenge even for us in the community to help, you know, these young people. One of the things that I kind of stress to a lot of pastors and other business owners is that we really need to get involved with our city officials, our city and leadership, because that's where it's going to start at. That's where it's going to start at. And we need to put our ideas and everything into work, because, you know, you mentioned something about law enforcement to Pastor just a few minutes ago. It's only so much that law enforcement can do as far as helping the youth. It has to start at home and with us. And when I say us, I'm talking about referring to the community. You know, we need to implement something, because if you could remember back some days ago, Mr. Williams, that, you know, part-time jobs started at 15 years old for a lot of young folks. If it wasn't nothing but 4 hours, that was good. That put them in the right direction for a little while. So, you know, I think as a business owner, we can come together, and we just need to get involved with our community leaders just a little bit more.
That's awesome. And I'm going to do a follow-up to you. Man, you guys, as a moderator, my head is really supposed to be still. And but I'm so in agreement with you guys, and I'm like, you know, I feel like I'm bobbing for apples over here, because it's so appropriate what you're saying. But let me ask a caveat to what you just said, Mr. Walker. What can you share with young people in respect to how they carry themselves, from their dress codes to their desires to have tattoos all over the place, and how much that impacts the business community's ability to help and assist them?
It's hard. I'm gonna be honest with you, Mr. Williams. It is hard. I have young barbers in my barber shops, and I try to set a standard myself before I even talk to them. You know, this is appropriate. This is really not appropriate, you know, but you have to think about them. Times has changed. So you got to bend a little bit. You have to bend a little bit with them as well to get them to, you know, to even pay any attention to really what you're saying, you know, because if you just go straight at them hard, I don't think you really would get to them. I don't think nobody, you got to give them, you have to bend for them a little bit as far as, you know, working with them to get to that point and everything.
I think that's a very appropriate answer. Let's go to our retired Los Angeles Police Department Sergeant, Ms. Cole. Ms. Cole, the question to you is coming from a major municipality like Los Angeles, can you tell us some of the similarities that you see even here in our smaller Clayton County, but you can see from a law enforcement perspective how we can find some synergy in some of the things that you've seen in the bigger cities? You're gonna have to do your mute things. You're gonna have to unmute yourself, sweet.
Truthfully, I haven't been here that long, but people are people wherever you go. And how I feel about, I'm very interested in this subject because it's just burning on my heart. But I feel that one of the things with the children, they don't have any hope and they don't have exposure. They need to be exposed to a better life. One thing that did help me, I'm a professional singer as well. And I started off when I was 15, 16, I went to the Apollo, and I saw all these other things going on in the world. Sometimes when kids do not have exposure or know what's going on in other places, that's all they know is what they see, what their parents did. And now we talk about a generational curse. When people are, I lived in the project for a while with my parents, but it was just for a while. And so if they're living in the projects and they don't know anything else but people getting high and selling drugs, they think that's a norm. And that's why, like I said, that's what I call a generational curse, because it goes on and on. So when you say compared to LA to, because I was raised in South Central LA, I saw the gang violence going on. And like I said, we don't have self-love for one another. I feel that if we start partnering with the teachers in the schools, the people in the community that are interested, partner with the teachers in the school. I've had a career. I also was a certified interviewer for the city of Los Angeles. What I used to do when I was in Dallas would go to the high schools and tell them how to take an interview, like you were talking about the clothes, attire, to where they just don't know. So we need to, those that do know, like I said, I think one place we could start in the school, we could say we could start in the home. That's where it's supposed to start, but it's not starting there because the parents don't know either. So I think that we should start partnering with these teachers in these schools to go some of these classrooms and talk to some of these kids about who they are and let them know they are capable of doing a better job, that they don't have to be subjected to what's going on and what they just see. So I think that's where it should really start, in the schools. And I think it should start in junior high school, because in the junior high schools, that's when they're going through this stage about who am I? Where am I going? Let them know being smart is not being what we used to call square, lame. I don't know what they call it now, but to let them know that they don't have to, just because you're smart don't make you lame. To be smart, you know, change the thought pattern of the children. Because like I said, they don't know, and their parents don't know. So those that do know, like they say, pull another one up, we should go out there and help them.
Now, I'm going to, as a follow-up to what you're saying, Ms. Cole, which is so appropriate. And thank you, Mr. Walker, for the head help with me, so we can start a musical group. But one of the things that you said, Ms. Cole, I think is very appropriate, especially, and people like, I know Mr. Joshua's not on our panel, but he's uses creativity as God gives in music and things like that. Mr. Wheeler also. But like in Los Angeles, or what part do you see law enforcement has in encouraging that approach and getting into schools and helping? Do you see a part that law enforcement can play in there?
Sure. They can also make presentations, you know, like auditorium presentations, to advise the kids, what are we really here for? Because, you know, when I was working for LAPD, we had, of course, black officers and white officers. And the black officers, they would work sometimes, you know, as a partner patrolling with the white officers, and they would discuss about how the white, I've heard it myself, how they would try to put down the black neighborhoods. They forget who they're riding with, really. And we have to remind them, I came from here. So, you know, you can't just put everybody in the same bag. So we got white folks, and God, believe me, I'm really not prejudiced. But I just remember a person who they are when they start doing things and when they start talking. You know, you got to remember who people are when they start putting stuff out there. So I think if some of the officers, and especially the black officers, as well as the white officers, go to some of these schools and make presentations to show that they are people. They are people. And I think also that we need the police. We need the police. So I don't think if they go there and let them know, hey, I'm human too, and I do care about you as a person, I think that would help tremendously. I really do.
Ms.
And what's
Cole,
expected
really put
of
this
me.
out there. I'm going to talk to you again, Ms. Cole.
Okay.
You being our law enforcement professional, or retired law enforcement professional, there seems to be a push. As a matter of fact, now that Mr. Fabian came back in, I'll pose this to both of you guys. I'll start with you, Ms. Cole. There seems to be a push out there for law enforcement to take on a counselor or a behavior specialist type mentality in law enforcement. Do you think that's appropriate in their push for retraining and things of that nature, so they have somewhat of a social worker capacity as a law enforcement officer? Do you think that's appropriate?
In a way, I do. I'm gonna tell you why. A long time ago, probably before I even came on, matter of fact, my uncle was one of the first black lieutenants on LAPD back in the 40s and the 50s. I think so, because I think that should be retrained. What I don't understand what's going on now is every police officer has to take a psychological test before he becomes, I don't know why they're not catching these kind of people going through. That's what I don't understand. Why haven't they changed the format or the critiquing of officers? But just as far as them being a counselor, like I said, back in the day, they would walk patrol. And I have friends that are police officers. Matter of fact, some of them live right here in Georgia right now. They're all retired. They did walking patrol, walking beats. And they would befriend the community. So I don't know about a counselor, but in some ways they should be. In some ways they can be. So I think that would add to it. I do think that would help. Because like I said, again, it let them see that this—
Dr. Falani, join the meeting.
Do you hear something?
There's just alerting us that somebody's joining the meeting. You're fine.
Oh, okay, okay, great. To let the children know, and like in LA, what they did at one time was try to have a gang truce. You heard about the Crips and the Bloods, and they also have a gang squad. I forgot the name of it. I've been retired 20 years, but they had a gang. It's a squad, you know. But anyway, and they try to have a truce with the children, you know, like the Bloods and the Crips. And I've heard that they are coming together. You know, so I do think that some way they have to have some type of psychological training as counselors. I do think that would help. I do.
Absolutely. And Mr. Fabian, if I get you to chime in on this level, the same question I posed to Ms. Cole. There's a push for law enforcement to be retrained and have a behavior special counselor type component to it. Do you think that's appropriate for law enforcement officers?
Yes, I highly agree, and I agree with Ms. Cole. We've seen a generation now of law enforcement officers across the country. They are getting in so much things now, and it be fights, shootouts, whatever the case may be. And then once they complete their 8-hour shift, 12-hour shift, however long it takes them to complete the report, then they're back right on the beat the very next day for the next shift. Well, we have to take a step back and look at the whole picture. When you have an officer that has dealt with a traumatic situation, being a fight or being a serious car accident, death, you should send that officer to some counseling. It should be mandated, it should be mandatory that that officer go get counseling. You know, I can say about some of my predecessors up in New York, and I'll chime in for Los Angeles. I am quite sure that those officers see more violent things than any officer on the East Coast, especially in Chicago. Now, imagine them having to deal with that on a daily basis, 7 days a week, if their shift allowed them to work 7 days a week with overtime. And so when you have that officer that deals with that and have no counseling, when does he or she go in self-destruct mode?
Amen.
When do they start beating up on their girlfriends, beating up on their wives, fighting the family members, fighting the public? It becomes a problem because they fail to get these officers help. Now, can you imagine this in an 8-hour shift? Let's just use a number of 8, an 8-hour day shift. Can you imagine having to either fire your weapon or pulling your weapon 6, 7, 8, 9 times in a shift? That's a lot. That is a lot for anyone to have to deal with. So yes, I do agree that there has to be some psychological evaluation done on them. And then you have to also get these guys in de-escalation training.
Yes.
Training. I got to drive it home. You know, in my tenure in law enforcement before I retired, all we did was train. Lord God, every time I turned around, we was going to train. I'm like, good Lord, how much can you train? But it prepared me. It prepared me to be a better person. It prepared me to be a better officer, how to communicate with someone. I still had a job to do, but it prepared me. Now, can you imagine having that you're going into battle, you're going into war in a foreign country without the training? Are you really fit? Are you really prepared to answer that call? No, because you're not prepared mentally, first and foremost, and you don't have the heart. So yes, we have to rely on training, but furthermore, and I'll be brief. In today's world, we put so much on law enforcement, so much. You know, and Ms. Cole should be able to piggyback off of this. You know, when we came on during that time, we answer calls, the basic calls, theft calls, burglary calls, robbery calls, shooting, cuttings, domestic. But now, we at a point now that we're answering mental calls for the mentally challenged. And you have to be able to make a decision quickly is that person really of sound mind? And sometimes it don't work out in the victim's favor, and sometimes it does not work out in the officer's favor. And so when we came on, there was no such thing as officers administering drugs to civilians, to citizens. But now you find some departments, and I can't speak for which department they are, but I know that there are some that actually give narcotics to a civilian in order to save their lives. So now we have taken the officer from the law enforcement standpoint, now we put them into the medical standpoint. And so it has to be a balance on how we do things now. That's my answer.
No, that's a great answer. Great from both of you guys. I'm going to take this question to our business community representative, Mr. Walker, again. As I'd also like to acknowledge some people that chatted on here. Miss Sim, they have Akina Sims. She says, yes, I can't stress enough. I'm always trying to get people to understand how important mental health is, and that is just as important as our physical health. They actually go hand in hand. I can totally agree with you there. We also have a question to our business owner from a viewer. What can the business community do to advocate employing more youth? We know it requires patience, but most of the kids just want to make a little honest money to buy things maybe their single moms can't. So, Mr. Walker, how would you answer that question?
Well, I would say that the same thing I said before earlier, Mr. Williams, that we as the business community, we can do a lot more if we just give these young folks some part-time work. But you know, everything, it comes down through a chain of command. We have to start from the top and work down to us. We're really the little people, but it can begin with us. If we business owners just come together and say, go down to some of these city council meetings and sit down and talk with them. Can we get a program where we can help some kind of way employ these young folks for at least 4 or 5 hours? Yes, I do think we can help. We would like to help. I hold men talk in Clayton County. Well, first of all, let me give you a little background on me. I've been in the military 32 years. I retired out of the military as well. I've been to 3 wars and back, you know, safely. A lot of this, what you guys are saying, especially what Ms. Cole has said and Fabian has said, is true. It is a lot of mental help that is needed. You know, and I'm not ashamed to say, you know, I had to go through a lot having PTSD as well, even with my wife. But a lot of times, too, is the choice that you make. But getting back to your question, Mr. Williams, is that we as owners, business owners, have to go to our city leaders. We have to talk to them and let them know what we want to do, what we would like to do. But still, we need the help. We need the help of those parents, because I have young men working in my barbershop for 3 or 4 hours on a Friday or Saturday. Their parents won't even let them come. They may come 1 or 2 times, but they always come to me. Hey, Mr. Fred, can he just work up there for 4 or 5 hours or a couple of hours? I'll see him 1 or 2 times and I won't see him anymore. So what that tells me, you just want to get them out the house just to get to do something. You're not trying to be consistent. I don't have an opportunity to sit down and talk with him consistently, you know, and teaching him and showing him the right things to do. So it's hard for us as well, and I'll say that again, but you know, we need the help of the parent, especially. We need the help of the parent.
Hey, that's a great response, and thank you so much. And I'm gonna go here just for a second. As a music producer and as a songwriter, as a gospel recording artist, as an inspirational artist, motivational speaker, all the things that God blesses me to do. One of the things that I noticed with our young people, and I'm really sharing this on behalf of those single mothers that question was posed with their children. Of course, I can get on that absentee of the father thing, which is important, but you know, there's circumstances that's happening to where we have to deal with this single mother with her child. There's a lot of things that I believe that are unrealistic expectations that our young people have when coming into asking for a part-time job or looking for help from either the church or the business community or even law enforcement. And it comes through the vehicle of the music. Their aspirations are set up in these multi-million-dollar things to where a $7, $8, $10 an hour job for a couple of hours don't suffice that spirit that's put in them. They're disrespectful to authority, which doesn't make them open to an authority figure like a police officer or a pastor or a clergy to share something with them, because the music is getting them to be disrespectful to authority. And so a thing that I would just share with single mothers is just understand that what's going in is what's going to come out. So if disrespect and multi-million-dollar dreams without an education and all these kind of things that's being perpetuated through the music is what your child is participating in, it kind of makes it difficult for all the things that we're advocating for to help the young people, for the young person to be presented as a person that's ready to accept help. So when Mr. Walker gives him a job and he makes an honest 20 bucks, if you're listening to little, I call them little Dookie Stain, excuse my French, but if you listen to little Dookie Stain and say, no, you got to have $1,000 bucks, then that 20 bucks to keep him out of jail doesn't seem appealing, if that's making sense. And so now that I posed that, I want to talk to Mr. Wheeler, Pastor Wheeler, now that he's got back on, and thank God you stay diligent, Mr. Wheeler. Mm-hmm. Hearing that and the role of the church, what do you think that the church can do better to invest in the community or invest in the things that's going into our young people's ear to counteract the negativity or that negative spirit?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, because we are what we eat, you know. I mean, I grew up listening to Motown and Marvin Gaye and, you know, Curtis Mayfield, James Brown, people like that. And they had contents in their songs that much of which was positive. Some of it was just fun music, dance music, but some of them have messages that got inside my spirit. So today's music is no different. And some of the young rappers coming along, they write some good poetry and they speak their mind and everything. And some of it is good, some of it is positive, some of it has some depth. And then others of it, you know, is just hedonistic, you know, is just fleshly, you know, we're just speaking from our lust or whatever, whether we're lusting for riches or women's bodies or whatever. You know, it's not refined spiritually, if you will. And so this is what we come up with and put a beat to, and it sells. You know, I'm thinking about a Cardi B's song, which is one of the talk of the nation right now, you know, where she refers to the lady's vagina. Well, you got little young kids singing this song. You know, you got 9 and 10-year-old girls singing this song, and boys, and it's getting in the spirit. So if we ignore that, then we do it to our own detriment as far as our community is concerned. So as far as the church's involvement, I guess we can kind of break with the tradition and start having some kinds of town hall spiritual discussions and cultural discussion. You know, sometimes I think the church is too rigid that it can't even go into cultural matters. You know, we can't talk about history. We can't talk about the nature or the history of our struggle. And really, we can't really talk about what's happening today in the political realm, because some of our churches are so rigid, you know, it's so traditional that we can't engage these issues. But they are issues, and parents are dealing with them every day. And unfortunately, some parents contribute to the problem because, you know, they snap their fingers to the same music, and, you know, and when you got the blunt on the table, and, you know, and you got the Hennessy on the table, and it's kind of hard for you to direct young minds.
Great answer.
So it's a challenge.
Oh no, it's a very big challenge, and I tell you, I raise my hand. I accept that challenge every day, with the responsibility and the blessings that God has blessed me with my musical abilities and creative abilities. You know, Josh, I know you've been here. I want you to chime in on this if you may, because I know the kind of work that you do in the ministry and the community also. But a lot of our young people, there's a nice homeless population of young people that still try to go to school that don't have permanent living. What is it, something that you can share to that? What is your opinion on that?
Well, one of the things I like to start with, I agree with Sister Cole. Let me give you a little bit of where I'm coming from. It starts with our community, it starts with us individually, but here's the deal. With parents doing the exact same thing, and parents doing the exact same thing as some of the teenagers are doing, it's not only hard to bring in a level of discipline where you can actually sit down and listen and talk to someone, for say a teenager, for them to listen, they're not going to be receptive, because if they're in an environment that they haven't been exposed to, if they've been in an environment where the Hennessy's on the table, you know, you got the Ciroc on the table, and that kind of music is played 7 days a week. I see it regularly in the music ministry. That issue is going to permeate the homelessness. It's going to permeate the joblessness. It's going to permeate everything that comes along with it as a tangent. Why? Because there's a stigma that the Black community has to fit into this particular mold. My background is, I used to be a cop in New Orleans, and immediately, straight out of the police academy, years ago, they pulled me and 6 other guys and they put us on the street crimes unit. All I did every day was wear a badge and a gun and a radio to work. I worked 12-hour shifts in New Orleans from Thursday till Sunday, 7 at night to 7 in the morning. I did that for 4 years straight. I didn't have to do anything else. I worked the street crimes unit. You know, the street crimes unit, we saw everything in New Orleans was from 14 years old to 21 were the biggest involvement that we had to deal with. Multiple arrests. We had to deal with multiple calls that we went to, especially when we were working the night shift. When we go out, these youngsters are doing everything. So it fell on us to ask, where's your mom? Where's your dad? Who you live with? Where's your grandmother? You live with auntie? Where is she? Most of the time they're working. Most of the time they don't even know where they are. So this is where the homelessness starts, because a lot of these kids are sold a dream through the music. And that brings to my second part of this. We're dealing with music. When I left the police department, I went into ministry 22 years ago. I've been doing full-time music ministry for a long time. The one thing I did was come up with an idea to really hit this thing at the ground level. Most every school in the Black community now is cut with the music department, the music programs in these schools, they're cut. What I came up with was Promised Land Music. It is an after-school program that would only be based in Clayton County, and we were getting ready to launch this thing at the height, I mean, right after February, when this coronavirus mess kicked off. We were gonna do every day, Monday through Friday, 2 to 7 every day, create a community marching band and a community choir. Free of charge. Nobody would have to pay anything for this program. That's the third thing we run into, economics. The Black family is always struggling financially. How do you make a difference? Offer them something that they can benefit from that's going to take them into the stratosphere, but offer it at a cost that is free. Not only will they be interested to come in and participate in this, it's going to get the eyes of other business people like Mr. Walker, Mr. Fred. It's going to get his eyes and other business leaders in the community to say, hey, That brother's doing something good with our youth. Let's put some resources behind him. Then you have a coming together. That's the one thing that we not only do, we plan to attack that in the Clayton County community area. It's incumbent on police officers and other people that we know to get involved and connect with this. I've played with multiple different ministries. I come here right after Hurricane Katrina, tore up New Orleans. When I got here, I not only decided to stay here 15 years ago. Here's the difference. New Orleans and Atlanta is on the same, they're the same identical cities. The only thing different about this is Atlanta, everything here is on a much bigger scale, much bigger. So what I'm saying is, I can pose this question. Why not we hit this thing at the ground level? Why not we not only push to get righteous leaders in office, why not hit this thing at ground level and take our youth and say, hey, come here, we got something you're gonna like. We got something you wanna be involved in and it won't cost you nothing. All you have to do is show up. I can attest to what Mr. Fred was talking about, bringing the kids down to the barbershop so he can talk to them and mentor them. They'll come once or twice and you won't see them anymore. I've ran through the same thing. I've seen the same problem with youth choirs. You're dealing with them youth choirs in different youth organizations and churches. Teenagers don't drive. From 10 years old, that's as early as I get them, from 10 to 18, they do not drive. It is incumbent on the mom, the dad, the auntie, the grandmother. It is your responsibility to get them there. Once
As a matter of fact,
at the ground level, we can get it.
Hey, Mr. Josh, man. Hey, Ms. Fabian, next time we just go give Josh a whole hour because everything he's saying is powerful. I mean, I'm digging that. I'm digging that. And I want to get to a couple of comments here from Youth Matters. Thank you for your comment. He says, this is a testament to you following what you're supposed to do, Mr. Fabian. This is a meaningful dialogue that all of our elected officials should be talking about. We have so many children living in the streets and in abandoned houses. The young girls fall victim to trafficking and means to eat and survive, just as a means to eat and survive. And so thank you, Youth Matters, with this one. And Lamar Williams, the third, he's been on here. He says, respect is a two-way street. And I'm going to address this to you, Mr. Fabian. It says, respect is a two-way street when a lot of the time the establishment is portraying such a hypocritical posture. What is being done to combat this situation? And what I get out of that question, I can be misunderstanding this question, but what I got from that is that the powers that be, when they're acting in ways that's uncouth or not right, and then we're trying to tell the kids to act right, you know, I'd like for you to address that, Mr. Fabian.
Attitude reflects leadership. I'll say again, attitude reflects leadership. If the leadership is not held to a higher standard, then why should the subordinates be held to a higher standard? So it goes all the way around. It starts from the top and goes down. When you have someone that is a positive, true leader, and let me just sort of, you know, leadership can come in many different forms. It can come in many different forms. You can't buy leadership. You can't be donated it can't be donated to you. Someone can't go around the street and say, send your mailbox, and you take it out of the mailbox and it's yours. Leadership comes from inside. That's where it truly starts at. And so it's something that it's not inherited. So it's something that God places on you to lead. It says that you have many preachers, that several were called, but only a few were chosen. Well, same thing with leadership. You know, everyone can't lead. And so by virtue of if I understand the question correctly, we have to hold our leaders accountable, first and foremost. If our leader's doing wrong, you just don't slap them on the back of the hand and say, okay, well, it's okay because of your name brand. But you have someone else, just a regular Joe Blow off the street, may do the same type crime. So now we're going to crucify him and drag him on through the mud. It's not right. It's not a double standard here. And that's just the way that is. You know, and that's one thing that I loved about my former job, and I'm not going to say where I worked at, but you already know. We get called out to do a job. We don't see left, we don't see right, we look straight down the middle. And then however the chips fall, it's going to be up to you how you present your case. And that's where it should be when it comes to our leadership and come to holding them accountable. When you do something wrong, you hold them accountable to it and you move on to the next person.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Fabian, for that. Hey, we have 10 minutes or 9 minutes left on this. Mr. Fabian has already privately, I'll put him on the spot now. Are we going to do this again next week, Mr. Fabian?
I'll put something together next week. If not next week, week after next, but I'll try to get something together.
Definitely. I think we need to do this thing, and please inform your friends and your people that's out there to chime in. Please give us a question, things like this. I like to acknowledge some of the people that's on here now. She's been here the whole time. Miss Millbrook, thank you for joining us. How you doing, Miss Millbrook? I see Mari Respert. How you doing, Mr. Mari? Man, Mari is doing some amazing things with his business. I'm gonna moderator privilege. Mari Respert does some amazing things with his graphics and design company called Media Creations. He can put your logo and things on about 30,000 plus different things. And Mari has a special thing that he does, Mr. Walker, that I think that you two should try to exchange information. But Mari does something where he has young people coming in and he's teaching them how to do the graphics, how to do the plotting, how to do the designs and things like this. And he constantly has young people in his shop in Forest Park. So I think you two need to get together. Hey, Mari, I'm going to, Miss Millbrook, give me a thumbs up if there's anything you like to say. Nothing? Okay. I don't even have to ask Mari. Mari gonna come off of mute. Hey, Mari, I want to give you a minute to share with us how important forums like this is and the kind of things that you see is needed for our youth to deal with homelessness, education, all the things that plague our youth.
Yeah, you know, forums like this is good because, you know, just dealing with youth myself, they're unaware that things like this go on. Like, it is not far-fetched because I've seen this like firsthand. They don't get the concept of successful people doing business. Their environment is so hard on them, and they're being influenced constantly and bombarded by this visual stuff that goes on every day, social media and whatever. So some of them don't realize positive things exist or positive people are out there, you know, because sometimes we put it in a certain shape in the form on a shelf, and positivity only supposed to look like this. And so then they find that they can't relate to that shape and that form, not realizing positivity comes in a lot of shapes and forms. So that's what a platform like this is good for, because you can see all the different shapes and specialness of, you know, all these great people that's doing something. So, you know, we got to continue to do things like this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Respert. Mari, like I said, this thing is Media Creations. Put your thing in the chat right there so people can find you. We have 5 minutes left. I'm going to give a minute to Ms. Cole. Ms. Cole, is there anything you'd like to say closing out? You got to unmute your mics, Ms. Cole.
I'm sorry. I was listening to everyone, and everything that was said is very beneficial. And what came to my mind is respect beget respect. And if we want the children to listen to us or the teenagers to listen to us, we have to show an example. So they will listen, because everyone is seeking. They just don't know what they're seeking. And like the church leaders, they will listen. However, we have to show that we care, and we have to be respectful toward them as well.
Yeah, man. Pastor Wheeler, if you can, take a minute there and share any last thoughts.
Well, I'm very impressed with this Zoom meeting. I would love to see young people or young person, maybe a male and female, be a part of the panel so that we can connect generationally and kind of talk to each other as opposed to talking at each other. I think that would be helpful for all of us. And I think we could learn from each other in this time that we're living in, because even though times change, people for the most part are the same. We're pretty much the same. The Bible said there's nothing new under the sun. Some people think it's new, but it's not. And we just have to find a way to look at it and get perspectives so that we could fashion some solutions.
Amen. Mr. Walker, go ahead and do your haircut thing and give us a part.
Real quick, I agree with Pastor Wheeler. I think one of the things we need to do is really kind of emphasize a little bit more on these young folks, because we're fighting a battle, but I think the battle is a little bigger than us right now. And Fabian, this is for something for you to think about as well. Social media is big, man. That's a big deterrence for these young folks. It ain't just the families. It's not just the mom and the dad. Social media is big. Okay. So that's something I would like to see. And like Pastor said, I think it's a good idea to have a young folk on this panel as well, because I had 13 and 14 years old. As you know, Fabian, they'll tell you from gang banging to everything. They will open up and tell you just how it is.
Hey guys, we got 2 minutes left. I'm going to take 30 seconds to just tell you how much I appreciate you. Thank you, Mr. Fabian, for asking me to moderate. I pray that I did a good job. I pray that everybody got their points across. I pray that you let the information that you received today, but more so, know there are people out there who are concerned about our children, concerned about what they're going through. Just know that they're out there. If there's anything I can do with live music, please let me know. Bring them to the studio so they can see where some of the stuff that they're listening to in an environment that is created, and they can see the positive spin, like Mari says, showing them that there's other things out there that they don't see. So close us out, Mr. Fabian. God bless you.
I thank everyone for participating tonight. I ask you that you take this and you share it with your friends and your family. And let's make change in this community. Let's make change across this state for a bigger and better state of Georgia. Thank you, Mr. Phil. We'll be in contact.
See you guys.
Well, one thing about it, I think,
I think it's